I don't think so. You see, so, but how come that there is a crocodile? I mean, there are crocodiles in Paga. People go there, they interact with them, etc. And we don't have a name for them. So what would you say was, or how would you identify the crocodile that you sat on during your trip? You can't say that. And usually anything that has no identity is difficult to talk about it because you don't know the kind of words you should use to express or to identify them. You get it? So we have to be very open, very creative. When you go to our, what do you call attractions or our hospitality, destinations, a lot of them do not have names. So room one, room two, room one, and room two is not, catchy enough. What is room one? Can you name room one maybe after someone significant, historic, and then put the narrative of who that person is? Personify that room, so people can actually make references to it. But this kind of a dry kind of way of, I think we need a whole orientation of how to excite the system. I always say that we somehow people think we are very nice people, but I think we're very boring people. Sorry to say that, but there's no excitement in our environment. No playgrounds, and when you go to even the Accra Mall, for example, no names to the places, only the shop names. But you probably have a lot of historic things that we can name places after, put some signages there, tell people, send people's mind to. Anyway, I will be ranting, so let's go on. Sorry. Good evening, everybody. Yeah? Good evening. There's one thing. If all of you mute the mic, I find myself in a very quiet place. I don't like it. It's as if I'm the only one talking. But so maybe for those of you who do not have maybe a noisy background, or not necessarily a noisy, but a rattling background, you can leave your mics on so that you can respond for the rest of the people. So I don't feel like, talking head, because it's a little bit strange when you're talking and nobody's actually responding or nodding. You don't know whether what you're saying is getting through or not. So maybe some of you can leave your mics on. If you have a rattling background, then of course you want to actually, turn it off. But if you don't, I don't mind everybody leaving it on. All right. And again, all of you, you've decided to mute your video. Again, it's very boring. I mean, it's covered, all right, but we must make it as interactive as possible. So maybe some of you may have to put on your video because it's a little bit dry on the screen and it's not nice. So some of you may have to put on your video, please. Yeah. All right. Okay. So today, let's see what we have. What have I got for you? Okay. So we did complete the 5-phase experience model, which we just had some contribution from Jemima, how these things can actually help. But let me say it again, please don't do this course just for doing it, all right? That you needed another master's degree. Usually that's the kind of conversation I hear some of the students have. Oh, I just need another master's degree. Oh, I was just bored, I want to do something. Please don't let this be a boring feeling exercise for you. Yeah, it won't be nice. I would love to see some of you, all of you, applying this and maybe calling me for us to share ideas on how to actually make it real. All right, make it practical. So, for example, if you have to implement one particular model, all right, one particular framework at your workplace, in order that you could actually practically, sort of identify or get the benefits out of it. All right. By all means, call on me. I'm very much available. All right. You don't need to pay me money. Only my accommodation if I have to visit you, or only some allowances for food and things, and that's not quite a lot. Maybe 10,000, 20,000 is not bad. I'm kidding. Anyway, so the point I'm making is that please try and implement these things. All right. Don't forget all these things that we're talking about. People have done them. All right. We've seen them in operation before. Sometimes our minds don't connect that it's actually this that we're doing. Even some of them, we've been doing them, okay? But we're not able to readily connect the theory to the practice that we're doing. So unless we brood over it for some time, like you sit and say, oh, okay, this thing that we've been doing, that's exactly what I've been doing at work or at a place, not necessarily work either. So they're not far-fetched, and that's what I'm trying to say. They're very much handy and they're very much in our systems, all right? But if you have to actually implement a particular thing that you think could help or you haven't done before, by all means, you can call on me. Let's discuss. Let's see how we can operationalize it and make it work. But please try and make these things work. Work on them. Otherwise, all that we're doing is useless. And for me, that wouldn't push this country forward. We always have to be developmentally oriented. Okay, so that's my little bit of how do I put it, advice to you, that don't let it be just something that you're just learning and letting it stay. Let's implement it. Okay. All right, so today we're going to talk about, obviously we're still analyzing the tourist consumer behavior. Today we're going to talk about analyzing the tourist characteristics from this perspective, supply side and demand side. All right. Now, from the previous lecture, what did we say is the supply side and where did we say is the demand side, or the inbound and the outbound? Yeah. So
the inbound is the coming in,
mm-hmm,
and the incoming, or maybe
mm-hmm,
incoming flights,
mm-hmm.
and the outbound is the departure.
Yeah, it's going on. Okay. So in that sense, if we are having to analyze the characteristics of the market based on supply side, demand side, which part is the supply side, which part is the demand? Guys, pump up. Yeah, let me hear you.
So the
Mm-hmm.
supply side,
Mm-hmm.
is it the consumer?
Yeah, so the supply side is the producer, the one who is actually hosting the tourist.
Oh,
Mm-hmm. So the supply side is the ones, that is us, for example, because we are the managers of the hospitality and tourism space, and that's why we're in this class. So the supply side is us, who are going to host the tourist or the consumer. And we're saying that in the analysis, you're looking at the product, related issues and then geographic related issues. Of course, these are not the only issues. You can also look at the demographics, the behavior, etc. But at least these two things are the basic ones that you've got to have a look at. You want to look at the product related issues, for example, the dimensions of your product, the quality of your product, what are the product, brand promise, what are you promising the consumer would get, all right? Uh, what are some of the variations of the product? Because don't forget, the product has to actually be tailored to the consumer needs, i.e. there must be segments of the product, all right? I mean, gone are the days that we used to have what we call commoditized product. Even now, salt, we have different forms of salt, isn't it? Iodidated salt, this salt, this salt. So when it comes to the supply side, that is analysis, analyzing what it is that we're actually supplying to, the tourist, or what it is that the tourist is actually, asking for. We need to actually sort of deconstruct it, i.e., break it down. All right, break it down into pieces, and then drill down into, understanding the components of the product and how that actually ties in with the characteristics of the consumer, in order that we can appreciate whether we are actually offering the right product or not. And that is crucial, all right? So in analyzing it, you have to do a supply side analysis. Of course, geographically, you also have to do the analysis. Now, let me ask you a question. At what point do you do some of these analysis in your work? Put it in your work context. At what point would your boss ask you to do these analysis, or if yourself, you have to do analysis of this nature? What are some of the instances or events that would call for some of these analysis that you have to do? Yeah?
Good evening.
Good evening, Mercedes.
Okay, so I think, I'll talk from my side. Before we start a particular job or engagement, we carry out some kind of risk management processes or procedures. So it's something like we need clearance from our partners before we can start a particular engagement, because it's possible that a particular client has, should I say, a history that is going to mar association with them.
Yeah.
So there's some kind of risk management processes that you do undertake before we onboard a new client or we start a new engagement. So we do one for the client, and we also do one for the particular engagement that we are going to undertake. So like the way we audit several companies, we do it for the company, and we also do it for the fact that we are going to audit. So we are going to do an external audit for that particular company. So it's more of a two risk management processes that we do for the various clients and then engagements.
Yeah, got it. So in relation to tourism, at what point are you doing this?
Okay, I'll say we'll do this before we embark on if it's a trip, before we embark on a trip. Or even before you even think about,
receiving maybe the tourist.
The tour, exactly. Yeah. Yes, that can be. Yeah.
Exactly. So you've got to actually from time to time review your offering, and especially when you are out there in the market, you want to see how competitive your product is, isn't it? So you would have to carry out some kind of situation analysis, to understand the benefits of your product, in response to the time, to understand whether it's relevant, it's still relevant, or it's out of market. Does it still respond to the consumer's needs? Is it still competitive? I.e., when you do head-to-head comparison of your product and that of competitors, are you still competitive? So you do that in terms of doing competitor analysis for your own company, vis-a-vis other competitors, to really appreciate that you are still in the market, or you do that to understand that consumers are still, or your products are still relevant to consumers' needs. So from time to time, you've got to carry out, these product-related analysis. Of course, the geographical analysis the same way. And don't forget, you don't do that as a standalone. You're looking at competitors' offering and your offering, and then of course, vis-a-vis, consumers, demands to appreciate that. Then the idea of demand side, you also have to analyze the people who are, or the consumers buying, from you. From time to time, you've got to actually analyze the demographics, the psychographics, the socioeconomic, characteristics, their behavioral and psychographic, characteristics. So behavioral, you're looking at how many times do they buy, how long they buy, all right, and all those kinds. Psychographic, you're looking at more of their lifestyle, which we have what we call VALS. VALS is one of the frameworks that makes it easier for us to actually understand the psychographic characteristics of consumers. So you're looking at their values, their attitudes, and their lifestyles, that actually govern the way they behave. Now, remember that you could have a demographic characteristics analysis, all right? So you're looking at male and female. And then you're going to see clearly the segments, the differentials between male and female, because obviously when men are making decisions completely different from how women make decisions. Obviously, women are a little bit detailed, men are a little bit superficial. But then when it comes to other, areas of purchase, like buying vehicles or buying certain categories of products, perhaps men will be a little bit detailed than women would be. So you couldn't actually use one framework and say that this is how you do the analysis. And that's why VALS is there. Values change, and values are actually contextual. There are sometimes, certain value sets that you use to describe, your purchasing behavior. There are others that use a different value set, to describe the purchase behavior. So it's good to do beyond your, demographics and your geodemographics or your geographic, analysis. It's good to actually use, psychographic as well, so that you can drill down and actually find the nitty-gritty differences, between different consumers. And of course, purpose of trip, also come in terms of your analysis. I don't know whether I'm clear on this. So we're saying that, you've got to do, tourist characteristics analysis, but you have to do that from perspectives of supply side and the demand side, in comparison with your competitors, and then be able to understand better what you're offering. If you have any questions or contribution, of course, the detail is what we're actually looking at. So you're looking at accommodation types, all right? What types of accommodation are you actually offering? And how is that, how does that actually fit into the demands of, the tourist? Now, yeah, Jemima.
I'm just looking at the slide and I feel, is it exhaustive? Like the supply side?
No, it's not exhaustive. So that's what I'm saying. You can add even a lot of the demand side things to the supply side, because even if you look at the geographic analysis, all right, you're looking at the characteristics of, let's say, people in Accra and the people in Kumasi, because these are two host towns, okay? Host towns that are actually hosting the tourists, all right? So you're looking at Kumasi and Accra. What are the characteristics of the people that are going to be interacting with these tourists, all right? Certainly the people in Kumasi and their attitudes and behaviors are completely different from people in Accra, all right? So at some point in time, maybe you've received, clients, maybe customers, tourists from abroad who are actually leaving some of the decisions to you and saying that, oh, we don't particularly know where we want to go, but we leave that to you. Where do you think is best suited for us, all right? Now, part of the analysis is not only about the core product itself, i.e. the attractions, the destination itself, the hospitality places, but also people's behavior and attitudes in receiving these tourists. Are you with me? And so you realize that the demographic analysis can even come in the geographic side of the supply side, all right, where you're doing the analysis. So it's definitely not exhaustive. You can add more. Yeah. So what were you thinking about it?
I'm just trying to merge it with what we were taught in operational management.
Fantastic. And that's exactly what you're supposed to do. Okay, so add that to it. Let's have that conversation.
Yeah, so in terms of scope, what you would want to maybe statutory regulations and all that. That in terms of process, Yes. So I'm just looking at all those factors that can.
Yeah, you are fantastically right. So obviously when it comes to scope, and that is why academics is very fantastic. I mean, it's exciting because you see how you are using the theories. And it just happens that we have to petition it so that it makes learning easier, right?
Okay.
We don't have hundreds of years for us to be in the classroom. So we'll petition courses in order that we can actually look at discipline-specific issues and then we can discuss. But certainly they are cross-disciplinary, in terms of practice. So when you're actually implementing things, don't say, oh, this one was in operation, this one, no. They are part of knowledge forms that we use, all right? So as we said, scope is what you determine, all right? So you could actually determine that this project, for this particular analysis, you're going to concentrate on A, B, C, D, E, as your scope of analysis. Why are you making that determination? Because of the work at hand, all right, and the time, at hand, or the resources available to complete, that particular exercise, and the relevance of the issues that you have to actually look at, So that's how you determine scope of work, So yeah, it's by all means not exhaustive, as you have just pointed out. Yeah, good point. Okay, so we're saying that part of your analysis, product-related segments, you're looking at accommodation types, all right? So where can you actually, with this particular client that we're talking about, let's say that it's a massive, quite a lot of people coming in, and they're asking you to take them to a place that you think, they could have a better experience. Now, we all know that if you look at 5-star hotels, all right, and if it's hospitality or accommodation is one of the crucial points in this trip, we all know that 5-star hotels perhaps are limited in Kumasi, but predominantly you're going to have 5-star hotels in Accra, isn't it? So in terms of accommodation type, although you probably would want to send the entourage or the customers to Kumasi or Takoradi or Ho, you know that the facilities available may not be adequate in hosting them. And so you would rather, concentrate on Accra. And that's why if you look at the major games that we had, the African, Cup of Nations, etc., the majority of time we overly concentrate on Accra because that's where our facilities are. If you look at my sector, for example, that is meetings, incentives, and conferences, majority of which actually happen in Accra. Why? Because of the accommodation type or the facility type, all right? So all these are sort of a consideration that you must take into, when you're making the decisions, accommodation type, adventure operator, organizers, attractions, transportation and services, nature of visit, all these things must be in the consideration or the decision making, all right, in terms of your analysis. Any questions or contribution? Any questions or contribution? Okay, so with the demand-based segmentation or the demand side analysis, you're also looking at the type of, visitors that are coming, or the type of tourists that are coming, youth, obviously between the ages of 18 to 35, but be mindful that this is not, exhaustive as well. Different countries actually determine what they mean by youth, all right? So in some countries, 18 to 35 is too much as youth, all right? So they may have their own definition. The reason why it's crucial for you to establish that is that, it goes with service provision. And you're thinking, oh, the youth up to 35. So you're actually giving them a particular kind of service, like let's say, hiking and etc. But in some places, 35 is not youth. And actually, when you meet them, you realize that they look far more older, and the attitudes and behaviors are far more mature and older than what you consider as youth. So you have to actually take into consideration the source country and their determination of what is youth. Obviously, family size, all right? Now, again, the definition or the perception of family could be or are mostly different, isn't it? Now, in our case, when you're talking about family, mostly you're looking at sizes more than 5, yeah? 5, 6, because they may have man and woman, and a child, 3 or 4 children mostly. But elsewhere, family could be only 2, all right? Or they could be 3. And they're not necessarily man and woman, remember, all right? They could be man and man. So, so all these things has to be seen from the perspective of the source country, before you get surprises. I remember when I left for South Africa first in 1999, and we were actually having an orientation about, our host in South Africa. And at the time we didn't know they were guys. Craig and another guy. But whenever we're having this orientation, the guy will say, oh, the partners, Craig and this, and their partners and things. Look, when we got to South Africa, we realized that they were actually 2 men, right? And they were partners not only in business, but they were partners, i.e., one and the wife, so to speak, all right? So you can imagine the shock, right? And at that time, 1999, the world wasn't this open for you to, kind of conceptualize gayism and lesbianism and LGBT, and it was something a little bit uncomfortable for me to comprehend, all right? But of course, that's then. So again, you've got to understand what family concept is from the perspective of the demand side. And you see, majority of times, especially those of us, from this side of the world, we tend to do what we call SRC. SRC, self-reference criteria, all right? We tend to superimpose our beliefs and our, values on people. So someone is actually coming and immediately we are thinking, oh, maybe they are Christians, all right? We don't even say maybe. In our mind, they are Christians, yeah? Because maybe they're called John and Joseph and Christian, Christina and all those things. So we see the names and immediately we think they're Christians, right? Now, they come in and there are certain things that we do that actually suggest that, some way, somehow, there's a religious or value imposition. And most of these, customers or most of these, tourists, when it happens like that, they take offense, all right? They take offense, especially perhaps in the greeting, the way we greet them, and then the kind of thing that we say. Maybe it's a Sunday and you're thinking, oh, they may even need a church to go. Who told you that? So we have to be mindful of, self-reference criteria for us not to impose our values and our beliefs on people in order that we end up, misconceptualize, their characteristics. And it's very, very important, all right? Of course, mature 36 to 65, as I said, there could be differences in terms of the categorization and how we define them. Traveler profile is very crucial. Now, whenever you're actually dealing with tourists, especially as we're talking about cross-cultural, customers, we have to be particular about their profile. We need to read who they are. We need to read, what they like. We need to understand them better in order that we can host them better. If we don't understand that, that's where the misconceptions and things and perhaps the cultural sensitivities actually come. There's an example that I'm not supposed to actually say in detail, but one of the meetings that we're having, there was understanding that some of the lecturers in class, although we have international students in class, at some point in that they will pass a joke in in local language, right? And predominantly it's going to be in Twi. Now, when they pass the joke and they laugh, I mean, the entire class laugh, a lot of them forget to actually translate the joke into English, all right? Forgetting that they have, not necessarily forgetting, but they don't conscientize themselves that they have international students in class and may not actually get the joke. And they proceed to teach. Now, when it happens like that, the student is lost, and some way, somehow, they take offense because they're still thinking, so what did he say? Why were people laughing? And things like that, all right? So it is crucial that we tend to understand people's profile in order that our engagement with them is, less controversial. And don't forget, tourism and hospitality is very much people contact, job. People contact, very much people contact job. So if you do not get to know the profile of your customer, of the tourist, you would have problems, i.e., there are likely to be controversies, along the line. People are not going to visit you again. All right. Again, we need to know the duration of trips, how long they're staying, etc. The destination they want to go. We have to have socioeconomic classification, like upper class, middle class, lower class, But of course, the class understanding of the class, classification is not in any way to be used in terms of your reference point, like, referring to people, or even in terms of price. Sometimes we have this pricing categorization where you actually, have some level as gold, class, silver, and those things. Majority of times when you do this categorization, you're not even supposed to be telling people that they are in the gold class or they are in the silver class, because some people also find that demeaning. So again, you've got to find a way of articulating and presenting things like that in order that people don't think that, it has anything to do with their, what do you call, personal identification. It's very crucial. All right.
Oh, but fair.
Yeah.
Already, even with the rooms, you are saying this is standard, this is deluxe.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel that in
Standard
order
deluxe
to
is
rake
fine.
in, yeah, in order to rake in revenue,
Mm-hmm.
and even push people, especially those who like to live fake life and show.
Mm-hmm.
If you really have the money, I think you should be able to go for business class. That doesn't mean the economy is not there.
I get you. So yeah, it is true. Obviously, these things are there, all right. But apart from the classification of the rooms itself, that people also have classification of the customers. Do you get it? So in some businesses, because, and especially if you take telcos, for example, if you buy a bundle of, let's say, 50 Ghana up onto some point, on their system, on their CRM system, they've classified you, all right? And they use certain names to actually depict that. If you have some of these schemes at your workplace, you have to be able to know how to communicate that so it doesn't actually become offensive. Are you with me? But certainly, of course, these classification of deluxe and standard, on the product, they exist. People would not be adamant about them. But I mean, when there's a classification about the customer themselves, know how to actually communicate that, so it doesn't actually cause controversy. Okay, any other questions or contribution? Okay, now let's look at the decision making. All right, who takes the decisions? At what point do they take the decisions, etc.? Now, majority of times, who do you think will take the decision for, especially within a hospitality and tourism space? Yeah, maybe we can even think about events. The events that we normally, engage in, that actually prompt some of these decisions to be taken. Who do you think in our space, that is hospitality and tourism, who do you think normally takes the decision? And when I say who, I'm talking about, maybe family, people, especially in terms of family settings, who do you think normally take the decision?
The one paying.
Sorry?
I said the one paying for it.
The one paying for it. Is that always the one paying for it? If you take certain events like, what do you call? Honeymoon, typical one. Who do you think is likely to take the decision? Yeah.
Those with experience, tell us.
Yeah. Joanna, were you saying something?
No, but it's the lady.
The lady.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, give us details. Why, what would they be taking the decision, etc. Yeah.
Oh, so actually, you, the lady, you decide on where to have your honeymoon. Yes, even though you're not the one paying, but it's assumed it's the lady's day. So we take most of the decisions regards to that.
Okay, excellent. So under the who, decision participant and decision roles, just like Joanna said, majority of times, if you take an event like honeymoon, it's likely to be the lady taking the decision, about where to go and perhaps what to do. So in this case, the decision roles really they are the influencers, isn't it?
Sure.
Right. So they are the ones influencing the decision to participate or to buy or, that particular, or to participate in that particular, tour. Now, the man obviously becomes maybe, of course, they are the ones who are paying it. In that instance, they have less to say, isn't it? And they have less influence because, as Joanna said, Joanne said, it is thought as the woman's day. And so, having married freshly, you don't want your partner to think that you are very chisel. So the influence on that decision will be very minimal. All right. Now, if you take, for example, what else, other occasions can we think about apart from honeymoon? What are other occasions? Hospitality people, say something.
Dr. Birthday party.
So can we?
Okay, birthday parties. Yes, Patricia. Birthday parties. Yeah. So let's hear you. Who are likely to be the decision takers?
The women.
The women. And sometimes the children, isn't it?
Because yes. And if you have kids, the kids.
Yeah. Yeah. So you were explaining.
Yeah, I was saying men normally don't celebrate these things. Sometimes they do even forget the dates. Kids and women are very interested in.
Yeah, a lot of times. Yeah. Okay. So
kids and women remember all these things.
Yeah. Okay. Good point. So why do you think we need to know these? Like, why do you think we need to know who the key decision makers are, who the influencers are, who the payers are, etc.? Why do you think we need to know them? What's the purpose for us knowing these?
Sam,
yeah.
I think it's important to know these people, maybe so that you can help plan around their interests. Let's assume it's a woman coming to your hotel. You will not be using colors like black, brown, and those things for bed sheets, or blue things. So, or maybe it's a girl's birthday. It's important to know whether it's a girl or a boy, to know how to select colors and also the kind of things that they will like.
Excellent.
Yeah,
so it is key for us to know these, as Joanna is saying, because obviously you would know where to target your message, isn't it? In terms of your promotion and in terms of your marketing. You know that if men should receive text messages about birthdays and things, they will brush it aside. In fact, they will delete it. They may not even want the partner to know, all right? But assuming that you have a fantastic offers for, birthdays, and you know that it's mostly women who actually take that decision, you bait them, you send a message to them to attract them. Immediately, there's an influence, and they are actually pushing the decision to actually be taken. So if you do not know who takes, what decisions, and the role that they play, you may be mistargeting your communication, and you may not have, the kind of effect that you should have. All right. So these are some of the things that we should be aware of, the decision makers, and how we can actually target them. All right. Now, where location of decision stages. So again, sometimes we're looking at, at what point are people taking that particular decision? Now, and remember, as at the time we're discussing yesterday, we're discussing what do you call disposable time and disposable income, etc. All right. Now, decision locations, or at the point of making decisions, you realize that some, barriers, there could be some barriers, or it could be easy selling depending on the times. So you have to also be targeting when some of these decisions are being taken, and then of course, you have, how, that is the capsule description of how each stage is accomplished. At some point in time, people will actually take the decision and put it on the burner, i.e., they will revisit the decision because the time is not too close, or they would actually say that because of certain events, that decision has to be shelved completely. So we need to know these decision points, how those decisions come about because of events, or just a normal decision to actually go away, and then who actually partners, or who actually involved in the decision making. So it's crucial that we actually know that, and this slide actually expands on what we're actually talking about. So you have the roles, the location for decision making, the timings, and the descriptions of that. I mean, you can actually go through it. Okay, any questions or contribution before we come to here? Any questions? Yeah?
Yes, sir, please.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in terms of the who decision making and even the where, I was wondering, how about how do you call it? Institutions or organizations that want to have conferences? Yeah. Could we also include the people in the, I think, is it Jemima or Mercedes?
Yeah, Jemima.
One of, yes, like they are in charge of selecting places for
the staff,
deciding, yes, and other things, yes, other packages. So could we include that, or just looking at?
No, we can actually look at it from also perspective of organizational buying, all right? And if you take, the whole idea of group trips, especially from the organization perspective, MICE, all right, meetings, incentives, and these things. Now, majority of times, organizational, decision for or arrangement for meetings may sit with is it public relations, PR office, isn't it? Most of the times, am I correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So the public relations actually, does a lot of these, and then I think the CSR also does a lot of outdoor events for organizations, isn't it? The corporate social responsibility officers.
Yes, sir.
Am I right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. or in some institutions, especially in the public service, they like Legon, for example, we call it the public affairs, or the public
corporate affairs. Corporate affairs,
yeah, corporate affairs, But at Legon they call it public affairs, department. But in what they call private firms, the corporate affairs, or even in public service, still corporate affairs. So you know that these are the people who actually initiate the decisions for, selecting meetings and conference venues, isn't it? But in the chain or within the circle of decision makers, the finance is the one who actually grants or actually, agree to selection of the places, because if the finance guy sees that, no, this place is too expensive, we can't afford it. Of course, the PR guy may actually argue from the perspective of image and say that, no, we need to be there because of X and Y image. But remember that these are two interests at stake. The finance guy is trying to protect the budget and exercise what they called, fiscal discipline. The PR guy, the corporate affairs, is actually thinking about brand image and how we can actually enhance that or assert our brand image. You get it? Of course, you're going to have other parties involved, such as maybe who else will be part of such a decision? Kwame.
Certainly,
Kwame, because Kwame has a PR, master's. Yeah.
Do you have to do this, please?
I already said it last time. Okay, Kwame, yeah, give us some information.
Okay, so thank you, sir. In certain institutions, just like you said, corporate, they have corporate social responsibility desk. Mm-hmm. So certainly they will come in. Then they call something sustainable development department. Mm-hmm. They will come in. Then probably the marketing department will also come in.
Mm-hmm. Great. So you see the kind of interest. So now, like as you said, you see and all these parties, involved in this decision are coming from interest perspectives. Remember, all right, because they have what we call the discipline interest. So most of the time, the marketing and the PR guys are actually coming from one point anyway, brand image and all those things, all right? But don't forget, the people like the accountant and the finance people are also coming from another interest position. And then, of course, you have the legal team, all right? The legal office. They're also coming from another perspective, looking at, whether there's going to be some legal constraint, etc., by choosing a particular, venue. So you're right. When it comes to corporate buying behavior, even the chain is much more complex than the individual one. The individual one, of course, when the woman says they want, the man has a very less to say, especially when the demand is coming from the children, all right? It's much more powerful. So they're able to dominate. But when it comes to corporate decision-making in terms of selection of tourism or, hospitality events, it is very, very complex. And you should be able to identify all these parties and try and influence them in one way or the other, especially when you look at where the weight is most, all right? In some companies, the finance, once they say no, there's nothing you can do, all right? So the PR people will say a lot of things and they still would not buy. But in some businesses too, depending on the orientation of the business, in some businesses, once the PR makes the selection, the finance must pay. So again, you have to actually investigate the orientation of the firm. Firms that hold a lot more, interest on their image and identity, they are likely to be more PR dominant in some of these decisions. But there are some firms who are very much orientated towards profitability and then looking for shareholder value. For them, they don't really care about their image, So yes, the advice will come from the PR, all right. But once finance say we're not paying, they're not paying. So you've got to actually identify some of these and then use it to target who you must influence. Are you with me? Now?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, very clear. Thank you.
Excellent. Any other questions or contribution? So again, don't forget, we're analyzing the tourist consumer behavior and how that analysis feed into our decisions and our actions, all right, at the organizational level. Okay, so of course, I'm sure you are very familiar with this model, information search model, that whenever we're making decisions, one of the key things is about information. We cannot actually make quality decision without information. So this information model actually shows us, how or where the decision makers are actually taking their decisions from. So it starts from the need recognition. And one of the things that we said is that if there is a need for, what you call honeymoon, and the need for honeymoon obviously comes from the idea that you've married, isn't it? Or you're married. So, or you're actually celebrating your anniversary. Yeah. And I think that it's become common these days. A lot more people, want to rekindle their love. And so, the idea of honeymoon from time to time may come in. So from that source, obviously there's a recognition of a need to actually go out. And when that recognition of the need go out, the first thing that the parties involved in the decision making will do is that they will scan their memories first, all right? Where have they been that they had a fantastic time, all right? So the need recognition leading to the information search, comes from within first. So you evaluate all the experiences you've had in the past. That is, we have gone to the information search stage, all right? You evaluate all the information that you've had in the past, as a guide in choosing which destination, would be great for you. Now, if nothing comes to mind or very few pleasant places come to mind, then of course, you may resort to other places like asking friends, checking online, checking on, comparison sites, in order to make some of these decisions. Yeah. What else do you do? Information search. What are some of the things that people do as well? These days, social media is predominant, isn't it? A lot of people actually go there. They read stories about, destinations, their rankings, etc. Now, once you embark on that exercise, then a couple of places come to mind, or a couple of alternatives come to mind. Then there's an evaluation of them, all right? What do you think we normally use to evaluate these alternatives? What are the things that we use to evaluate these alternatives? Pump up. I know by this time you guys are tired.
I think.
But we have to try. Yeah, now.
So I was going to say distance or location, but I don't know. Maybe I changed.
Yeah, of course. Say that and then explain. Yeah, go on.
For instance, if like you have 3 places in mind,
yeah,
or 3 destinations in mind, yes. Of course, it is interrelated with finances, like your budgets.
Yeah.
Yes, but then you look at and also the time available for you guys to.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah.
Yes, so you best choose like what suits all these factors.
Excellent.
For you.
So in order to make it easier for you as a manager to bring these things into memory, is when you look at your 4 Ps, those of you who haven't actually done marketing to the core, but you can actually have a summary of it. Now, the 4 Ps, which is what we call a marketing mix, is your product, your place. Your place is actually called distribution as well, right? Your price, and then the communication, which is your promotion. All right. Now, customers or consumers actually use these to do the evaluation. As now was talking about, your money, your pocket. All right. How much is in your pocket? Obviously, it's a crucial factor. But of course, the distribution. All right. That is accessibility of the attraction or of the destination. So is the hotel far away, or is the place far away, or it's near you, what else can you do to assess it? Can you actually have a look at it online? Does it give you an idea who they are and what they do there, etc.? All right. So the distribution of the place factor is crucial. Of course, the communication too. All right. You go onto their website. Can you have enough information there, or the website is not appealing? There's no, links to certain activities that you can actually have a look. The layout is bizarre, some kind of way. There is no navigation. The navigation is not friendly, so it's not user friendly. That alone can actually influence your decision not to go there. All right. In fact, there are some hotels when you check on them online, the pictures that they use, it's surprising. All right. Something that you're using to communicate to people, the rooms are not in. I mean, you know what I mean, right? Yeah. How do you attract people when even your website doesn't tell much about you, or actually give a lot of you away? So that is crucial, of course. So the 4 P's or the marketing mix actually is used for evaluation, and you can actually go beyond that. Sometimes you can see that the evaluation is even through third parties. All right, like what we say about these websites, lastminute.com, Opodo, and all those websites that actually do third-party referrals. And especially, there's this one popular one, the one that a lot of people, TripAdvisor.
TripAdvisor.
Exactly. People put a lot of comments there, and then you're reading. You haven't been there, you have no clue, but immediately, the first comment you see is, don't go to this place. So somebody is actually on there and said, don't go to this place, and you want to go there. So these are some of the things that we use for evaluation, right? And I keep telling, my students that even if you look at evaluation of alternatives, it starts with ourselves, all right? Sometimes you've been to a place and you promise yourself that you never go there again, but you fail to tell people. Why? Because you are so ashamed of the decision that you took that you don't even want people to hear it. All right. Those days, growing up, you go and buy a shoe, and then somebody will look and say, how much did you buy this shoe? I mean, in Takrady, I'm talking about. Then you mention maybe 100 Ghana and say, oh, webu, papa. You're a matriculate. So some of the purchases, when you make them, you keep it to yourself. People ask you, you don't want to tell them the true value of how much you bought it, because at some point in time, you're even ashamed of the purchase, the decision that you make, or the quality of the decision. So evaluation even starts from us, all right? But clearly, there are so many sources that people actually use for evaluation. So we've got to be mindful of that day in and day out, people are evaluating our services in comparison with competitors. And so you've got to look out for these sources, third-party sources, word of mouth, internet, web, Facebook, etc. Everywhere, people are actually using us checking on us to do evaluation, all right? And then, of course, the purchase decision itself, all right? We should remember that when people make a decision to buy you and even come to your premises, it does not guarantee purchase, all right? You will be there, somebody can actually receive a text message, Pepe, TripAdvisor. Oh, why don't you go to this hotel for 3 nights for 100 Ghana cedis? You'll be standing there right there at the reception and say, okay, please hold on. I just want to check on something. Then you leave and you go to the next hotel. In fact, it just happened to me last last 2 weeks, I was in was it last 2 weeks or last 3 weeks? I was in Akosombo. All right, we went to one hotel to swim, and after swimming, in fact, we had our lunch there. I didn't have my lunch because I had my lunch at a choba. I like those places than hotel food. I think they're much sweeter and nicer than hotel food. So I had myself and Lord Mesa, I think we had a lunch at a choba, and my friends said they want to have their lunch in the hotel, so where we are going to swim. So they had their lunch there, and they were complaining about the food. Okay, so after the food, we swam, a pool. We had a very good swim there. Then after the pool, we're asking them about the rooms, and then the prices they quoted. We're just standing there and say, "Oh, there's a nice hotel." So we're just standing there. Remember, we've eaten there. We had a swim there, but we decided to sleep somewhere else. All right. So these things are happening. The idea that the customer is actually right in front of you doesn't mean that they're going to buy you. In fact, they may even end up sleeping one day there and then the rest of the day sleeping elsewhere, isn't it? Kwame, you are
Yes,
also in the field.
Absolutely. So I was even thinking now, I think that probably hotels or such firms should begin to share. So, for instance, I happen to work over the years in East Legon Enclave and Mensvik, Angie Hill, Irata, they share. So, for instance, you decide to sleep at Mensvik, then probably you eat and have other recreation at probably maybe Micklin, or then we all share. So the food aspect goes to Micklin, the bed aspect goes to Mensvik, and it will be very nice. But unfortunately, I mean, that will not be bought anywhere. Yeah. Everybody wants to have full cost or have the affair of the full share, if there's anything like that.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah, and you see, there is a reason why you want to do that. All right, especially when it comes to this sharing, code sharing. You know, when you look at the airlines, they do code sharing a lot. All right, so you see that British Airways is on a particular route that France, Air France is not on that route, and then they are code sharing it. All right, it happens a lot, and they actually these kind of alliances, and it helps them a lot because then they don't lose customers to their competitors, and that's why you have these alliances.
So in Ghana, alliances happen only when there is overflow. For instance, I remember when normally in January, when the weather changes, there's always a change in flight.
Yeah.
And so, for instance, if a flight has 200 people on board and there's a change in flight and they have to put people in hotels for 2-3 days, they look for very less expensive hotels that can accommodate their people.
Yeah.
So, for instance, if you have close to about 150 rooms and you can do, let's say, 100, you will take the entire thing and then probably share among your friends. But when this happens, they call something barter. Okay, the hotel that takes it doesn't pay directly to the ones it shares with.
Okay.
So probably they don't take physical cash. The next time around, you also bring guests to them, then it balances.
Oh, okay.
So sometimes you will.
So they do sunbound.
So we call that term referrals.
Referrals, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Hospitality, it's called referrals.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow.
Okay.
When you have too much and you have to give out some of your customers, it's referral. Yeah.
Okay. Write it down. When I ask you the definition of referral, you should be able to say it. Okay, go on, Kwame.
I think that if the industry, especially in Ghana, if we're able to learn some of these things, they'll go a long way to help us. And then secondly, as you mentioned, you and your colleagues didn't leave there as a result. You didn't use the place for accommodation as a result of a certain price tag.
Yeah.
But ordinarily, you should have just said, okay, the price is too high, and that we're going to, and it should be something very normal. But it turns out to be the negative. Okay, because for instance, your colleagues weren't too cool with the food in the other restaurant, but they found themselves sleeping there and came to swim here. Okay, and there should be nothing wrong with. Probably they should just leave a comment and say that okay, the food should be improved on the next time. But there should be we should be able to cross easily, and this shouldn't be a problem. So that at the end of the day, everybody gets something.
Yeah.
For me, that's what I think is very important. That can help our industry.
Yeah. In fact, I'm even thinking that if they were empowered, all right, by their management, they could have actually gotten our full custom by even getting us to sleep there at a cheaper rate because the food wasn't nice. And this is the forward-looking hotels. Now, for example, we've complained about your food, and you've given us a price tag for your rooms, and we say, oh, it's expensive, all right? By way of, getting our custom, you can say, okay, I'll compensate, your complaint about food, with maybe a certain amount of discount on the rooms, all right? And they could have actually gotten our service. Don't forget, this is happening at a time of COVID, where people are not traveling and people are not, using hospitality facilities. So you probably are going to have, vacant rooms, empty rooms, all right, that you haven't filled. Occupancy is likely to be very low, right? So what stops you from actually granting certain concessions in order that you can even retain the customer? I'm surprised. And it's, in most cases, it's not about the front line. It's about management, because management hadn't actually empowered the front line. Let me give you an example. Where we ended up sleeping, all right? Okay, fantastic pricing, nice rooms. But there was no internet. I think I told you guys the first time we met, all right? And then I questioned them, and the guy says the Wi-Fi is for the owner. Can you imagine? And I asked him, okay, so the Wi-Fi is for the owner. You cannot even make it available to us. He said no. So these are some of the issues that we are confronted with in the industry. The idea that we do not empower the front line to take immediate decision or on-the-spot decision in order to win customers. It's very, very difficult. It's very, very sad. Any point or any contribution?
So, are you aware that in the States, that we have days and rates? So, for instance, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we take $100 for a deluxe room, or probably an executive room, or it cuts across board, except for probably presidential suites. Now, on other days where we have our peak days, for instance, if Friday and Saturday, or Friday, Saturday, Sundays are peak days, where you will have casino in the facility, part of the facility, and those things, you realize that those days are the days with higher rates. Patronage is high. You have a 4,000 room hotel, always full. Has full capacity.
Of course.
In Ghana, you don't see that happening. I mean, you walk into a hotel and you ask, okay, do you have accommodation? The person says yes, or the frontliner says yes. Okay, I want to stay for like probably 10 nights, and you say, okay, this is our rate. Our standard room is $240. There's nothing we can do about that. And you are asking, oh, can't you do it? The person says, no, my manager, I have to speak to my manager.
Yeah, exactly.
The manager
says, okay. To take decisions.
And I think that's what is making us lose a lot. And it's not making the industry also competitive, because if you look at a particular enclave, for instance, the airport city, everybody is taking around the same rate. Where there is no same rate, or where there's rate differentials, then it means that the standard there is low.
Yeah, I agree with you. See, I always bemoan, the idea that we are not creative. And it's not only within the tourism industry or hospitality and tourism industry. If you look at even insurance, all right, within the insurance industry, why is it that myself and let's say a sales guy using Santa Fe will pay the same premium insurance? It doesn't make sense, because when I come to work, I park the car here, I'll teach throughout. So my next movement of the car is about in the evening when I'm going home. All right. There's a sales guy who also uses the same car, the same reg, all right, the same engine capacity. But he's on the road 24/7 because he's a sales guy. And we are paying the same premium. Does that make sense? The risk level is different. I mean, Mercedes, you are the one who does risk assessment. How come that a salesperson and a teacher or a lecturer are actually paying the same premium? All right. The same way that Kwame has the discussion that we're having. You have hotels who are unable to actually identify days and capacities and profile it in order that they know that even on Monday, all right, you can actually identify that the behavior of consumers is such that Monday morning, most of the time you have zero occupancy. Yeah. In the afternoon, getting to the evening, maybe you can actually do 20% occupancy. So why is it that why is it that you cannot put price promotions out there and say, if you have to come to my hotel between the hours of 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Mondays, you can actually pay as low as 10 Ghana cedis and use that to attract people. And just like you said, if you go to most of the Western countries, England, for example, from Monday to Thursday, you can actually have hotels prices as cheap as 25 pounds. All right. The same hotel by Friday, and especially by Friday from 5 p.m. onwards, you're talking about 150 to 200 pounds. Why? Because by Friday, a lot of people are actually shuttling up and down, going to places, visiting people, seeing families, etc. And so demand goes up. And most of these people, they are already motivated. So they will actually purchase or patronize anyway, because they're going to see their families, they're going to see their loved ones, they're going to party outside everywhere. So they will definitely have to, get a place to sleep. So there's a motivation. But when there is no motivation, which is the off-peak period, then you've got to actually use certain incentives to get people to actually postpone or not, to actually bring forward, some of their purchases. So somebody will say, oh, in fact, if I go to Manchester today, I could actually sleep in a hotel for 20 pounds. So instead of going on weekend, why don't I go on Monday to Tuesday or Wednesday? People can actually push forward their consumption. These are some of the things that we hardly do. And so it doesn't make our industry very profitable. And sometimes we're having zero occupancy, we are paying electricity, we are paying staff, we're paying, overheads, and we're not profitable. Anyway, any additions to what Kwame said? Anybody? Yeah? Okay, so must we move on? Are we here?
Yes,
we are. So let's move on.
All right. Thank you. Okay, so now let's look at the motivators and deterrents, and some of the things that actually motivate people to, participate in tourism and hospitality, or in consumption, of tourism and hospitality, and some of the deterrents. And the good old, Maslow's and all those, frameworks actually tell you about, people and their needs and how they want to fulfill it. And Maslow actually says that the need actually starts from what? Physiological need upwards. So issues about, hospitality and tourism needs are most likely to sit at what we call the socialization level of Maslow's theory, because they are definitely not essentials. All right, majority of times, hospitality consumption or tourism consumption are not essentials, and that's why we say disposable income. They may not be safety needs, which is the next level, but they're most likely to be on socialization. Because people want to belong. On the love scale, people want to be showing of, or people want to show their, social status. All right. Oh, I've been to Kempinski before. I've slept in Holiday Inn. That kind of thing. So from the third layer, that's where we actually, getting the hospitality, and then tourism needs, fulfilled. But as we all say, it shouldn't be, cast in stone. Sometimes through your creativity, you can actually bring, the hospitality and tourism needs to be part of the basic need, essentials of life. And I was telling my the MPhil MBA class that in these COVID times, a lot of people have postponed certain needs that are not essential. For example, they've postponed luxury buy. I don't know who is actually thinking about buying a new phone within the COVID period. I don't think people were thinking about buying new phones, buying luxury products. A lot of these purchases have been postponed. But at the same time, there are ways that you can actually bring these purchases forward by proposing or making a proposition that actually sits well with the consumer in terms of addressing their basic need. All right. And one example is that after COVID, all right, when people have, gone through all the traumas of COVID, and we've had maybe vaccines, people want to repair their lives. People want to work more to get more money. They've lost value. They've lost, investment. They've lost savings. So they want to work and get more money. In that case, majority of you within the space are likely to find that purchases may not go on, all right? Because people want to work more to pay their mortgages before they think about embarking on a trip. How do you actually instigate them to rather think of embarking on a trip as opposed to savings? It's your strategy, all right? So one of the things that I was suggesting is that you can actually put a promotion that actually suggests that in order for you to work more effectively and efficiently and to get more money, you probably need a very sane mind. You need rest. After COVID, we've been inside for so long. We've been so timid. We've been so, what do you call? What's the word? Depressed, all right? Which means that for us to get our mojo back, for us to start being very active and we need to actually go away. We need to sit at a beach. We need to sit on some mountains and to think about things that have happened and to think about, oh, I'm lucky to be here. In fact, I could have been part of those who are dead, but I'm here. How do I actually go back there and then make meaningful life? Do you get it? So instead of seeing hospitality and tourism consumption as socialization, as the third on Maslow's hierarchy. You can actually bring it forward into the essentials of life and tell people that, look, you need a renewal of mind. You need Kwame.
No, sir, I saw you.
Yeah.
I think on Twitter, you tweeted this like 2 months ago. When the lockdown.
Yeah.
And I had a debate with you carry on, maybe.
Yeah, go on. Say
it. Then I was asking myself, so is it that is it a theory review or something? Because certainly we will have self-actualization.
Yeah.
We will look at ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We will look our I don't know whether people will consider going to rest than getting something to eat, going to look for money in difficult times than going to rest.
It was one of the webinars that we did. I was actually challenging the Maslow's theory in the face of COVID. And I was telling people how they can actually transfer or transform, if I should put it, some of the needs to become essential needs, as opposed to being, so to speak, socialization, belonging needs. Because you see, at some point in time, all right, you can actually convince somebody that for you to be effective and for you to be efficient, you need some sanity, all right? And in most cases, you realize that you need that because, yes, you want to work and make money, but where is the strength, all right? Especially when you are depressed. Do you get it? How effective can you be when you are depressed? So you're talking about having come out of COVID. We all have been inside. We all have been so moody. We've lost our mojo, all right? Even sometimes you realize that some of the plans that you had, you're actually out of tune. How do you get yourself back into that groove that can drive efficiency and can drive value? You can make that proposition, all right? Yeah, Joanne.
I want to help Kwame with this. Sometimes you can have a very good facility, but if people don't visit the place, you don't know, they don't seem to know about what you have. So like you were saying, after this COVID, you can come out with something like all goes equal, like every room, the same price, and a very, very low price. Let's say if you charge 200 Ghana cedis, you can reduce it all to 50 cedis for every room just this time. Okay, so after doing that, one, people get to know the place. If they cannot come later to pay for the 200, maybe they can advise a friend to go there. So I think he can also come out with something like this since he is already in the industry. It's just like, let's for a night, Friday, Saturday, you are gone, you see. So that's what I think.
One example that let's say that you have a honeymoon planned, all right? Let's say you have a honeymoon planned somewhere in December, and you see a fantastic offer from Senchi. Here is the case: you haven't slept in Senchi before, all right? Your partner has been dreaming about going to Senchi all this while, and there's a fantastic offer coming from Senchi saying that come to Senchi for 2 days for 100 Ghana cedis. Would it influence you to push forward your decision, or you will still end your decision in December?
Absolutely. I mean, certainly I will push
forward.
Exactly. So that's the thing. So the debate was that we probably can actually use the 4 Ps to promote or to actually make people change their decisions. Because I saw Senchi advert recently. They sent it to my email because I went there with my son and he didn't want to leave the place.
Trouble don't come.
He came from England. I took him to St. Giffard. There was a group, myself and my friend from England and the family. So we were there for 3 days. On the third day when we were about to, they said, Daddy, I said, yes. Can we stay here for a while? And I said, sure. A while. When you be here, you know how much I'm paying. But he absolutely loved it because he was doing bubble bath and all these crazy things that they do in England. All right. And he's doing the same here. But then he has a fantastic weather in addition. He's going out. He's chasing these rabbits, at Senchi. They have some rabbits there, fantastic rabbits. So all, combined, made him love the place. And he's thinking that, can we stay for a while? Because of that, I get emails from, and when I saw the email just yesterday, they have 190 Ghana cedis. Was it 190 Ghana or whatever, some figure? And they say if you have a child, at a particular age living with you, it's free of charge. And so many other, fantastic offers. And then you're thinking, if you really, had some holiday plans, you probably can actually promote your consumption as opposed to delaying it to that time. So there are certain things that we can do to actually shift people's consumption patterns, in order that we can actually, gain the kind of occupancy that we're looking at. Bam, you want to say something?
Well, all I want to say is these things are targeted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They are always targeted because, and as to whether, for instance, you probably frequent such places until they will target you, but it's these are very difficult times. If you ask people in the industry, they'll tell you that they are not surviving with the overheads is much low for them. Utility is crazy. Okay, so even if you're putting in a package around this time, you are considering a lot of things. I am currently doing a small research, and it's on this month's hotel, Alisa Hotels.
Yeah.
And if you look at the numbers, they have a lot of conference rooms. They've tried to just operate a few. They are always almost every day full with all their hotels. And conferencing is something they really get money out of a lot.
Yeah, they even invited me sometime, wanted them to discuss conferencing.
Very well. So at this very moment, nobody's doing conferencing. And they've stopped buffets. They're not doing buffet again. Okay, so all the places they're getting money from is locked up. What strategy are you going to put in place? Because if conferencing, for instance, is your main focus, or that's where you make most of your money, and you are faced with this already, accommodation doesn't normally fetch you because it's out of the conferencing that you have accommodation. So where will you be looking at? Here is a case you are faced with overheads. You are faced with equally other things you will have to cater for. And your staff, you have reduced your staff strength. Where is the target now?
Yeah. So, the point that you raised. So assuming that you have, or you could foresee that in the next 1 week, occupancy is just about 10%. Now, if you do a scenario building and you realize that if you decrease, or if you give an offer of, let's say, 70% reduction, all right, 70% discount, you could push, sorry, you could push occupancy from 20% to 50%. Which of them would you go for? you know. So for me, I'm thinking that sometimes we have to do a little bit of scenario building and then look at whether leaving the place, because if someone should occupy the place, all right, or if you have to leave the place, you know, unoccupied, how much are you paying in terms of overheads? And if people should occupy the place, how much are you paying in terms of the usage, you know? And then, I mean, how much overhead are you paying in terms of they using the facility? So we've got to actually have some of these scenario buildings in place. And it's part of the research that we have to do. As you said, you had actually doing a research. We have to be able to quantify, all right, our occupancy and not occupancy, you know, rate, and how much they bring, you know, how much they cost us, in order to be able to embark on some of these promotions. Because until we do that, we may always be guessing that, oh, it is good to leave it, you know, unoccupied than to have a slash of discount. But you don't know. You haven't actually looked into that yet. You get it? So for me, I think that the best thing to do is for us to build or do these scenario buildings, all right, in order to identify at what percentage of occupancy at the minimum baseline can we even realize a little bit of, you know, return, as opposed to just lying fallow. I don't know whether you get my point. Or you guys, I don't know whether you follow.
I get you. I get you. I get you.
All right. Okay. So another point apart from Maslow is value-based. All right. Which, you know, regular value theory says that it consists of instrumental values, which is the ideal mode of behavior, and terminal values, which is end state of existence. All right. So one of the many ways for us to analyze demand is also based on values. All right. Now, some people would actually look at value from the perspective of somebody would say, would you want to fly or not to fly an aeroplane? All right. Because those who believe that the ozone layer depletion is as a result of human behavior and human activities, actually, you know, have their values against anything to do with flight, yeah, or anything to do with, you know, the growth of the airline industry. But the question is, okay, but majority of them also travel, especially when they go for the conferences. All right, how do they go? And then the question is, well, they go by flight. In that case, where lies their belief or their value set and their practice? But some people will tell you that that's why they pay for what they call carbon footprint. So they want to erase their guilt by paying into certain votes where they say that, okay, use this money, that is for some countries, use this money to actually pay for, you know, afforestation, etc. So those people who have this value-based, you know, consumption would always want to look at whether you are using, you know, miners in your workplaces or whether you are paying workers the ideal, you know, rate for their labor. And so in your communication, they want to see you put some of these things there that we use, you know, what do you call, legitimate workers, and we pay them legitimate salaries. All right. So you've got to actually look at the section of consumers who look at value, you know, in terms of what they consume. And they want to see that, you know, I mean, I don't know whether people, you've had any experience of people coming to your places, you know, or your facilities and asking you certain value-based questions. Have you guys had any experience like that?
On few occasions, you'll have people coming to ask him. Yes.
What questions do they sometimes ask?
Well, for instance, you will have people ask you, what category? What category? Hello.
Yeah, we are listening. Kwame.
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hello.
Hello, Kwame, we can hear you. Hello, Kwame. Hello, Kwame. His network is gone. All right. Anybody else has a comment on that or a contribution? Hello? Kwame, can you hear us? Hello, Kwame. Okay. All right, guys, are you there? Hello?
Hello, sir, we are here.
Yeah.
Hello, sir, we are here.
Okay, excellent. All right, so let's go. When Kwame joins us, he can make his point. So another basis for understanding your customers is valence of attributes. That is expectancy theory. Some people also make determination purely based on what they expect from it. Obviously, they're looking at how much they're paying and the kind of service they're actually getting out of that. So if they are paying 100 Ghana cedis, they expect to have a value, equivalent to that particular, amount of money they're paying. So purely based on expectancy, in relations to the effort that they are putting in. Now, the things that actually deter people, from participating in tourism or in hospitality are some of these issues. Obviously, climate conditions, political instability, infrastructure, lack of transport network, adequate connectivity in terms of telecommunication, terrorism, lack of appropriate boarding facilities, unfavorable health. I'm sure most of you, would be able to, go through. So all these are some of the things that if we don't take care of, obviously people will not participate in our industry. So again, you can actually, relate that to your own, company or to your own office and how you should be able to, take off these barriers. So a study that was conducted, some time ago, see hygiene, look at hygiene and its impact on, participation in hospitality and tourism. Huge one. You would think that things like crime could be a lot more impactful, but yes, they are. But look at hygiene. Hygiene, very, very crucial. And that's why people bemoan the state of Accra. If we are not hygienic and we're not seen to be hygienic, it is difficult for people to participate, in our destinations. And look at terrorism. So hygiene and terrorism are even at par somehow. Crime, very high. Politics, obviously, political instability, very, very impactful. Then prices of goods and services. Of course, weather, Kwame, are you here? I think he's still not back. So you can see some of the things that actually impact on people's participation in tourism and hospitality, and we can actually understand it from that perspective. How do we make sure that we can, increasingly eliminate these things, especially hygiene, so that people can increasingly, come to Ghana as a destination and for the industry, as a hospitality and tourism industry, to benefit more. All right. Any questions? I think we can actually start chapter 3 next lecture. So that.
Hey, what's the last one? The weather.
What was the last
one in terms of the deterrent?
Oh, the deterrent. So weather.
Weather. Okay.
Yeah, weather. Okay. Yeah. So any other questions or contribution? It looks like we've lost Kwame for good. Kwame, are you here? Hello?
He's still not around.
Yeah, he's still around. All right. Any questions or contribution?
Yeah, so mine it's not about the today's lesson, but I saw something on the page that examination timetable, that kind of thing. Is it going to be the same online exams, or we have to travel and come and write exams?
It will be online. It'll be online. Oh, okay. We'll upload. In fact, they are writing my tourism paper even tomorrow. And this afternoon, I have to use the entire afternoon to upload my questions. So we'll upload the questions on Sakai. I'm sure they will take you guys through Sakai if they haven't taken it through already, and how to access Sakai, etc. All right. So yeah, it certainly will be online.
Okay.
And currently, what is happening is that we're actually doing take home. So we upload the questions and then you download it, you go and answer, and sometimes 24 hours, sometimes 48 hours, and you submit.
Okay.
Because of the times, so we're trying to make it less stressful as possible.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. Any other questions or contributions? Okay. All right. So I hope you understand what we discussed. Next week, next lecture is when? Sunday? Patricia?
Doctor, we are done for the week, but there is a new timetable.
Yeah.
So I will check and get back to you.
Okay, yeah. So we'll start with chapter 3 with a new timetable. But I hope all of you have the slides. Have you all received the slides?
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Yes,
okay.
please.
All right, thank you. And then I don't know whether the course outline, you had a course outline as well.
Sure.
Yes, please.
Okay, cool. All right, thank you guys. So we'll meet again on the day that Patricia tells us is our next class, right? All right, thank you for today. Enjoy your evening, and of course tomorrow is Friday, so enjoy your weekend.
Okay, thanks.
All right, thank you. All right.
All right.
Bye.